Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Trygve. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island experience so unique.
And we do knot tying. So we'll push chairs aside, break out some tables. Everybody picks a different knot that they're used to, and everybody will tie knots. And it was quite funny. 2 years ago, we had a lady who worked on a double uni knot. She was working and she couldn't get it. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the session, she screams out, I got it, She's showing us. So that kind of thing is really fun to hear.
Captain Chuck Downs is a charter captain and educator who hosts fishing seminars. You heard him describe the excitement during a knot session when one of his students learned how to tie a knot. He's offering 4 weekly seminars at the Pine Island Community Church every Wednesday starting January 29. And now, here is Captain Chuck. So welcome, Captain Chuck Downs. We're happy you're here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And for those people listening, you're a charter fisherman with Walking the Dogs charter, which we'll get into the name in a second here. But first thing we want to know is just right from the beginning, where you grew up, what you were doing before you came to Pine Island. So if you could fill us in on that.
I grew up mainly in Pennsylvania, and then we had a family business in New Jersey, so I grew up in the summers down at the beach and learned to fish down there. And then moved to Delaware, where I taught for 30 years. So I was an educator. So I still say I'm talking fishing, but I'm teaching. And then moved down here in 2007-8, and we had to go back to Delaware for a few years, and then came back down in 10 and been here ever since.
So how did you find Pine Island?
I have nieces and nephews on the East Coast, and we were visiting them, and my wife didn't know anything about Florida, and I said, the West Coast is what you want to see. So we came over here, and she said, oh, there's this little place in Matlacha. Which was the Bridgewater Inn. And we stayed there for a couple nights and started fishing right there. And I said, this is it. She said, I think I can live in Florida. I can live here.
So you only had to go in as far as Matlacha, and then you said, this is it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was it. I mean, later on, we toured the island and we spent more time. And the first year we were here, actually, I taught up in Port Charlotte. So I spent a year up there.
So you know the area really well.
We did. We researched, we spent a lot of time, and we had kind of a unique experience. One of the ladies that was in our teachers union, we came out of Bert's Bar, and I said, that looks like Linnea. They're standing waving their back at us thinking, that's Chuck and Pat Downs. So it was an immediate connection there too.
So you were doing fishing as a child, or at least during your summers. How does that transition then over into being a captain?
It was an easy transition because I looked at it as a teaching experience. And even today, I don't do a lot of chartering. But what I do, if people want to learn how to throw topwater lures and artificials, come on aboard. I'd really like to teach you. So the big transition was going from offshore, big rod and reels, heavy duty, spending lots and lots of money on bait, to all of a sudden I'm down here fishing in 10 inches of water. So that was the transition.
Do you have a preference? I mean, certainly both are enjoyable, but is there a different side to it, or you just enjoy being on the water and being able to catch?
Spent about 45 years offshore, and the preparation and getting ready, all the tackle, all the bait, getting the boat ready, and, leaving the dock way before sunlight and spending hours and hours offshore, and then coming back, and then all the boat taken care of when you're finished the day. That was that was one of the things. And just my age, it started beating me up pretty good. So.
And did you teach multiple subjects, or you were primarily a certain subject in terms of your teaching career?
My teaching career started as what they call it, a human resource person. It was during a desegregation. And then I moved to, I worked with a program called Option, which was an alternative school. And we dealt with some of the most disruptive kids in Delaware. I did that for 18 years. And then I moved into vocational training with moderate to severely challenged children. And that was so rewarding.
There's not always a lot of opportunities for those kids, right? I mean, there's certain objectives that have to get hit yet. So to be able to work with them specifically.
Yeah, we did a vocational training and I did a wood shop with them. Mm-hmm. The wood shop grew and grew and grew. We made lots of Christmas presents for people and bookshelves and things that the school needed that cost thousands of dollars, and we could build them for so much less. And then the big project was there's a place in Delaware called Peapatch Island, and it was an old Civil War prison camp. And they had unearthed a 10,000-pound cannon, but they needed a mount for it because the mount had rotted away. So they handed us Civil War plans. Can you do this? 3,500 pounds of oak. And we built it in the school with the kids, and we took it all apart, and we put it on a trailer and took it out to one of the island communities, and the Air National Guard lifted it out and mounted the cannon on it for us. You know, we really believed that our kids could do anything, and they could. They really did. So
they must have been overjoyed.
Yeah, it was amazing because the money we brought in from sale projects, then the kids got to build projects and take them home, and the parents weren't all.
So it's Walking the Dogs Charter, so we have to ask, where did the name come from?
Okay. There is a technique when you're fishing topwater lures that when you twitch the end of the rod tip, the lure actually zigzags back and forth. And the purpose of that is, of course, to look like a wounded fish, but also that you keep the lure in the strike zone a lot longer than just reeling. So learning that technique, I actually learned that up in New Jersey, fishing for striped bass. Was able to bring it back down here, and now I do it all the time. That's my favorite way to fish. Because when you fish bottom, you don't see the fish hit. When you fish topwater, you see the explosion. We searched for a lot of names, and it was hard to come up with, and Walk the Dog seemed nice, but we always get asked if we're a service that walks dogs. So.
Now, you have fishing seminars coming up, and they're free, right? Or donations. They're all going to be, you did it last year. Had you done it years before, or just was last?
I started with the Real Anglers Fishing Club, and we did it then. Got involved with Pine Island Community Church. Ian hit. I said to a couple of my friends, you know, we're out there, we're a distribution center, but we got to get people's mind off the hurricane. It's a fishing community. Let's do something for the fishing community. So a bunch of my friends and I, we got together, my wife, several other people, and we started planning it. And it was received really, really well. Again, because it was local anglers, it was, you know, we did everything from what kind of rod and reel to select to, you know, what kind of line, what kind of lures to use, what days to go fishing. I mean, we covered it all. People just complimented. That was 4 years ago. You know, we actually did one before Ian, and then we started in with Ian just for the people on Pine Island.
And you had great turnouts.
We've averaged between 75 and 90. Average attendance was about 60. And they like it because they can ask questions and we can individually do it. The outline we actually came up with this year was, instead of just picking a rod and saying this is the way Capt Chuck fishes, we got a panel of people, and they've actually selected their favorite rod and reels, and we got that as a handout for people so that if they got a specific question about a particular rod and reel, they know who to go to. And
you have anglers there, you have fishermen, they're giving their time at these seminars?
Are all volunteers. We got about 8 to 10 people that serve on each panel. We break down into individual things for not tying. We have several people that have just volunteered to work at the door to check people in, hand out things, collect a lot of lures. We've been very, very fortunate. The people that attend are very attentive. They just want to soak up the information.
So is there like a theme where certain materials are presented and that's the educational portion, and then it's followed by a Q&A, or are they pretty much just more open conversations? Like you said, you have all these panelists with different rods, et cetera. So do they just describe their rods and their techniques and then people ask the questions? So is it like, 100% interactive, or is there kind of educational material that then is supported by the Q&A, or how does each session work?
Yes, definitely. And not just a Q&A verbally, but we have it on index cards that people can ask a question and they leave their number, and I can call them during the week to try and get them straight, helping them out.
Oh, so no one gets missed.
No. The nice thing, and our sessions are 6 to 8, but 9 o'clock a lot of times we're around because people just want to stay and talk.
Wow, that's a great thing that you're doing.
It's rewarding to us too. We just like talking fishing.
Now, do they have to register ahead of time, or do you prefer they come to the door? Or
we prefer that they register, just because we do a lot of handouts, like the packet that I was showing you. Mm-hmm. Just the first session is 4 or 5 printouts that we do for each person. So when each person checks in at the door, they get a folder with that session's information on it.
So everybody gets a packet when they come in, a reference.
Yeah. It saves people from trying to write notes all the time, and they feel like they missed something, so that they can just see the general information, and then they have something specific, and they can jot that down.
And where are the seminars held?
Pine Island Community Church, 5320 Doug Taylor Circle. Plenty of parking, lit facility at night.
I assume there's a capacity in the building as well, which also kind of supports the request for registration.
Right. But if we aren't at capacity, and we do have plenty of folders, we don't turn people. We really try and service everybody.
And to register, do you prefer they call you or text you?
Call or text me, yes.
And what's your phone number?
609-412-7328.
I imagine your phone will be busy.
It does get busy.
But
the texting is nice, because if I'm out on the water, I can still get it. And I always answer the people. I've got you registered, so they know they got a spot.
Is there a cost to attend, or how does that part work? Are there donations, or?
The only thing, everybody that presents is free. Everybody that works the door is free. So what we do is, I just ask people, Pine Island Community Church gives us this wonderful facility. Sometimes the heat's on, sometimes the air conditioning's on. If you feel in your heart to drop a couple dollars in the door coming out. Also, the local tackle shops make donations for us, so we can have raffles. And we do that, the last one.
I know you told me about, I don't know if it's the last seminar. You said that'd be a good one. It's about the champion redfish fisher.
That's the third seminar.
Oh, that's the third one. Okay.
That's the third seminar. It was actually the last one, and then she had a conflict. Yes, so she will be in, and just an amazing person. Can't say enough about her.
Well, maybe we should just go through the general topics by session. So the first one features what, et cetera. Maybe just run down through the ones you've got planned for this year.
Okay. The first session is, we actually start out by a question to everybody. Would you like to catch more fish? And hopefully the answer is yes.
Does anybody say no?
Yeah, very few. I'm myself, but there's a secret out there. I sure like to learn it. So, and then we just talk about the wind, just touch on the wind a little bit, about, the differences in the east winds. And we then get into just a little bit about safety on a boat, because so many people come down here, they buy a boat, they see lots of water, and they think they can run anywhere, and the boat dealers make a lot of money on repairs. So, we help with that. New devices come out, like instead of flares, they got a signaling device now that you can buy that you don't have to keep replacing. We talk about first aid kits and wound wash and things like that you can have on board, signaling devices that you can let somebody know if you're in trouble. So we cover those things. Then we get into line and reel. And I ask all the panel to bring your favorite rod and reel, and they kind of just go through that. Different kind of lines and leader, the science behind that. Then we take a break once we're done that, and we do knot tying. So we'll push chairs aside, break out some tables. Everybody picks a different knot that they're used to, and everybody will tie knots. And it was quite funny. 2 years ago, we had a lady who worked on a double uni knot. She was working and she couldn't get it. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the session, she screams out, I got it, She's showing us. So that kind of thing is really fun to hear.
And that was after the breaks and then?
The breaks.
Oh, so knots takes up a pretty good portion of the...
Very much. And sometimes it runs over. The second session, we will talk about lures, different kind of lures, topwater, twitch lures, different kind of jig heads, how to rig baits that are weedless so you don't get them stuck in trees or in grass, things like that. Again, our panel presents their favorite, so you get a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. The idea is not that one way is the only way. It's a lot of different, and then you pick what suits you the best. So that's mainly the second. We have our guest speaker on the third, and then the fourth is kind of, we have another guest speaker coming in for that who works for Coastal Kayak. Very, very talented young man. And then we'll get into tides and moon phases and barometric pressure and how that. And with the load that we're carrying this year, we might even add a fifth session because there's just so much to cover. And we don't want to push anybody. We want them to get the information.
When you say we have a lot of water, which is very, very true, do you cover like environmental things? I don't mean like the weather, because it sounds like you're already talking about the barometric pressure, but how does somebody new to the area, for instance, or even that wants to get better, identify like, if I want to catch this particular species, like what am I, because if you just look across the water to the untrained eye, it's just a bunch of water. Structures or grasses or different areas. I mean, does that kind of thing get covered?
Right. We have two people in particular that are going to speak on, one on Pine Island Sound and one in Matlacha Pass. Actually, we do map skills, but we also talk about, negative tides and how that affects fishing. We also talk about fishing around oyster bars. And, it's a shame Matlacha Pass doesn't have a lot of grass anymore. Okay. So, where can you fish in Matlacha? Oyster bars, sandbars, cuts into the mangroves. And again, we're having problems with the mangroves because the hurricanes took an awful lot of the mangroves out. So where we used to always fish in the shaded areas when the sun would come up strong, and that's where you'd find your snook and your redfish, we don't have a lot of that anymore. You really have to look hard for that. But that's good places and, particular things that different people. What's different from the Sound than in Matlacha Pass? Two different. We also have environmental people on our panel that actually do water testing all over Lee County. And so they're very knowledgeable about the water conditions that we're facing.
Do you ever have any interesting discussions? I know certain people get maybe passionate about a certain particular rig or lure or whatever. And if somebody else says, no, I use this, anybody kind of like get a little too passionate about their lure or their rod or their line? I
try and get people to keep an open mind, okay? Because, the lures I fished with last year, I don't necessarily fish with this year. I might try them, but there's a lot of new lures out. And the best example I can give that, just about 2 months ago, someone mentioned this Nomad lure that Nomad makes. It's called Nomad Maverick 90. And it's a little pricey. So I tell people I climb trees if I throw it in a tree. I'm getting that lure back. But I looked up the video on it. This is an amazing lure. You can pause it, you can top water it, and I've caught redfish, snapper, snook, shark, mangrove snapper. I mean, it's just a bottomless lure, and that's the one I go to right now. What I tell people also when I go fishing with my friends, I got 4 rods loaded. He's got 4 rods loaded. They're different. We talked the night before, and communicate what we're throwing. He's throwing soft plastics on a jig head. I'm throwing topwater lures. What's the color? What we're doing. So you pick up somebody starts picking up fish, that's what you switch to. Yeah, I think everybody's passionate.
If you think about it, like the technologists on personalized phones are getting updated, more powerful. TVs are doing a lot more than they did. Cards and, are doing a lot more. But you've kind of got, well, here's my trusty rod, and I've always used this kind of, line and this kind of leader, and I've always used this kind of jig. But those companies are probably doing research and innovation and delivering new products to the market. And so that's fair to say, right? So it's worth exploring those because there might be something better than maybe that tried and true that you've used for the last 3 or 4 years.
Here's a perfect example of that. My wife has a bad shoulder. I have a bad shoulder. She used a fairly heavy rod and reel. You make a couple casts, you're tired. I got her a Bull's Bay rod with a Shimano Vanford reel. Way less weight involved. Very good rod and reel to go with. She can fish now and enjoy it and not be in pain. When I go out fishing for the day, I'm throwing between 800 and 1,000 times. So if you got a heavy rod and reel, probably 10, you're done for the day.
All right. So seminars, at least 4, possibly 5. When does the first one start?
The first one starts January 29th, which is next week. It's a Wednesday evening. It's, we just try and get people engaged in that first one so they want to come back. So, and like I say, that even when we finish the seminars, then we continue once a month for anybody that wants to come and just do fish talks. We offer that also.
And it sounds like you kind of build on the knowledge throughout the series as well.
Yeah, and we've from year to year, we've changed it a little bit. We had a gentleman that lives on Pine Island last year. He did a thing on the wind and the moon and the atmosphere, everything, how animals react to things and picking these. And he was phenomenal. He was just phenomenal. But we try and change it up some, different speakers sometimes, very quietly. They're engaged now. They want to talk about it. That's the fun.
Well, this has been wonderful. And we're going to post this. You gave me the agenda, the seminar information, so we'll post that on Facebook, and you'll have it on your Facebook. We'll keep updating it if there's new information. For example, if you're going to do a 5th one.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, we sure appreciate you coming, and what a nice thing to offer Pine Island, because it is all about fishing. You're right.
It is, and it's about the spirit of people. This is a fishing community.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.